One of the most helpful things I've learned is that I'm not alone. You're not alone. And as we open up to the right people, we'll see our communities grow bigger and stronger. If you find this video helpful, please support us by liking and subscribing. And if you know someone this video can help, please pass it their way. My mission is to help make the world a safer place by sharing with you the stories that saved me. So having a lot of autoimmunes myself and just dealing with all that and how your body just attacks itself, you actually have the autoimmune that I am scared to death of having. Talk to me about MS.
It's crazy you say that too, because I hear that a lot. Like, a lot of people fear MS, and trust me, I fear it now, even having it a little bit. But I guess MS started for me really weird. I didn't know what was happening to my body. I just was someone that worked 24/7, always did a lot of overtime, and really wasn't listening to my body. I feel like that is the start of my journey, is not listening to my body. To be honest, I'm walking around and I have my right leg started getting numb, and then it moved on to my right arm. So for me, that right there should trigger someone wow, my whole right side of my body is getting numb. But for me, I'm on go 24/7,
Yeah.
Let me just ignore it type of thing, until it started to attack my vision. That right there is when I'm okay, let me pay attention, and I'm thankful for my coworkers, because I was a lead at the time, and I'm telling my people my right leg has been numb forever, and we're in and out of the freezer and the fridge. So I'm thinking it has something to do with that. And then I'm guys, but when I turn to the left, it's numb. I'm it's blurry, started seeing double. So then that's when I started getting worried. I'm okay, maybe there's a correlation to what I'm feeling right now. The numbness wasn't really painful, when you're thinking about it, you're it's just numb. But turning to the left and seeing double is scary. I started wearing my glasses for a little bit. I'm thinking that maybe I'm just overly stressed, so I'm taking Aleve, Tylenol, Then I schedule a eye appointment. And I'm hey, I'm seeing double a lot. Can you help me? They're your eyes are perfect. You're passing all the tests. Your muscles in the back of your head, how they see back there, they're perfect. There's nothing wrong. But my eye doctor was really nice. So she sat down with me and she's what else have you been feeling? I'm curious. And I told her about how I felt a little numb that week and stuff like that. And she's maybe you have diabetes. And I'm maybe, maybe I do. At that time, I had a 3-year-old. They do that testing when you're pregnant. They could have kind of saw that I had diabetes. So, but I'm thinking anything that a doctor will tell me right now, I'm going to believe, because so she suggests that I go to the ER, a specific one, because there's always going to be a specialist for your eyes there. So I'm okay. I went to the ER that day with my daughter, and I'm let's just go check it out. Mind you, not so much in pain or anything like that, but just very much so can't see when I turn to the left, and my body's numb. No pain. That's it. But then, they take me, and it was as simple as you going into the first initial room when they do your vitals. And they're doing that test where they grab their finger and they're follow your finger, Right there, they were they called the doctor in. When they do the vitals, it's a nurse. They called the doctor in. They did the little test on me, and they noticed that my left eye was not moving with my right eye when they were telling me to follow it. Oh. So that prompts them to be it's neurological. let's do some testing. So I stood there. They were like, we're gonna do some testing. I'm like, okay. Mind you, no previous ever testing that I have done like this before, obviously an MRI. And it took like hours. Like I wanna say maybe 2.5 hours or 3 hours.
Wow.
I fell asleep in there, so. And
they did the MRI with because they did it for me when they were testing for me for MS, which I didn't have at the time. This is like 7 years ago. And there's one with dye, right?
So they do your whole testing first.
Okay.
So they'll do your brain, it's like your whole spine, but you know how your spine is like divided in two. So thoracic, cervical, and they'll do all 3 sections on its own, and then they'll repeat doing it, but then after they put the dye. So they'll do it all together first, they'll put the dye, and then they'll do all the same imaging again to see if anything is active. That's the purpose of the dye, to see if you're having like active flare-ups, inflammation, anything like that.
So they're comparing both of them.
They're comparing both of them. So when you do an MRI just without the dye, you still see everything. You still see your lesions, you'll still see everything, but with the dye, you'll see if you're actively having any like things like that. So in that moment, you know, they take me back to the room and the doctor just comes back very nonchalantly and is just like, yeah, it's what we thought, like you have MS, and I'm just like.
Did you know what it was at the time?
So, this is gonna sound crazy, but it's actually important, right? Because a lot of people are very like uneducated and ignorant to diseases, and I was one of them. I did not know what MS was at the time. I've heard of it before, but me thinking about it, I thought it was ALS, which is the other one where I don't know if you remember back in the day when people used to do the ice bucket challenge and dump the ice water, and it was to raise awareness for ALS. And in my head, I'm thinking it was that, right? So I'm like thinking like everything, and I just start crying, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? And then they told me that, and they were like, it's gonna be okay. And then they admitted me into the hospital. So at that point, I'm like, okay, this is real. So I get on my phone and I'm like Googling what this is, and I'm just like still so confused about it. And then that's kind of how it started, you know? I got admitted and I had to stay there for about a week. Yeah. It's crazy because like what I'm telling you, I was walking into the hospital, totally someone that was doing overtime all the time, working and just not listening to their body, right? And that moment where they told me I had MS, it like changed my life forever, you know? They started to do all these testing because obviously MRI is one part of the diagnosis. I don't think that they can just say like, yes, definitively, this is what you have with just an MRI. They kind of have to rule out almost everything. So I was they constantly were having to take blood out, making sure I don't have cancer, any other diseases, Lyme disease, anything like that. They even test you for like STDs at that point. They test you for literally everything. And then they have to do a spinal tap or a lumbar puncture is what they called it. So this is a way for them to get fluid from your brain and test it that way. So what they'll do is they'll trap you, kind of trap you, because they like strap you on like a table, right? So like you're on a table and you're like belly down.
Oh my God.
It's horrible, right? Like you're telling someone like, hey, you have this disease, but like, let me strap you to this table really quick. So they strap you down and they put like a needle in your spine, and maybe in between a certain specific like spot. And then what they'll do is they'll lift the table. And you're just like end up being just like this. And the liquid is slowly coming down through your spinal. And they
Does it hurt?
So it did not hurt me. Mind you, I'm a woman that had epidural before. So
I was gonna say, does it feel like an epidural, but
you
weird?
know, like it's like, but epidural was way worse. But what I will say is that affected the rest of my experience that week, because it was something that, I mean, I researched a lot and it's like half and half with people. But for me, when they lay you back down, they say you have to lay down for like the rest of the hour. You cannot get up, right? And if you get up, like it'll just mess up like your brain, and you're gonna get headaches and all this stuff, right? So I tried my best not to get up. I didn't get up, but it affected me tremendously. Like, headaches were nothing that I don't even think they were migraines at that point. They were just like so bad. I had to like wear kind of like almost like a hangover headache. Like I had to wear glasses. Other than that, at the same time, like simultaneously them doing the spinal tap and all those testing for the rest of the diseases, they already had put me on 5 days of steroids. So autoimmune disease, inflammation, they're going to use steroids to not, like, you know, to reverse the inflammation, right? So the moment that they started doing steroids, it also wasn't helping like what I was feeling from the spinal tap. I never took steroids before or anything like that. So it affected my body to the point where like the nurses were having to walk me around to like, for me to be able to know how to like walk stably, you know? They had to walk me around. I had to start wearing an eye patch, because also after the steroids, instead of kind of like helping the inflammation, I don't know if my body was reacting just horribly to the steroids or horribly to the spinal tap or just horribly in the stress. You know, that's not good for MS. But I had to wear an eye patch as well while I was in the hospital, because the double vision that I was just working with all of a sudden just got so worse that I couldn't even look straight. It was almost like if you looked at me, I was cross-eyed and my vision was being so affected. So what I had to do was cover my bad eye at first, and then they would tell me to cover my good eye, so that way we could start strengthening the bad eye, you know what I mean? It wasn't necessarily like I ever lost vision. It was just always blurry. It affected, or it was double as well. Then it would affect you getting dizzy, you know, like, you know, throwing up, weakness, learning how to walk all over again. It was such a like traumatizing experience, honestly, being in that hospital, getting diagnosed. Yeah. And all I could think about is, does everyone go through this during their diagnosis, you know? Yeah. Now, coming back from it, you know, they give you all those steroids, and when you're about to leave, they give you more steroids. So that way your body is kind of weaning off of it. So on top of all those symptoms, like with the steroids, I was also gaining weight, which is not a big, horrible symptom, but it's something that also affects like yourself, you know. I was gaining so much weight right when I got diagnosed. It was like noticeable weight, obviously. And I couldn't return to work for about 2 months, I think, after that diagnosis. I didn't go to work. It was a struggle. It was so much of a struggle. I didn't want to tell anybody. So at that point, only my family and friends knew. My closest family and friends, not even work friends, acquaintances. I was very like almost ashamed, like is what a feeling that I felt at first, which is crazy, right? You're like, this is happening to me. Why am I feeling ashamed? But
why were you feeling ashamed? What was it?
I don't know. I guess like Google really is not a good thing to do. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you Google it and it's like, you have this. And then I'm like, okay, I don't know anyone that has this, not one person. So I'm like looking at different things, and you always think the worst, right? And I read also about autoimmune diseases just in general. When your body is attacking like that, it's at some point when you got sick or not leading like a healthy lifestyle, or just so many different things that could play out for you to get this, right? And so I'm thinking in my head, like, what did I do wrong? That's where I think my emotions of being ashamed came into play.
Yeah.
So I pretty much kept it a secret until I realized that there was 2 guys at my job that had wives that had MS. So it made me, you know, want to reach out to them to see if they had anything to tell me or anything like that. And they were so helpful. And it really helped me in this journey, in knowing that there's people that you don't know specifically like on a day-to-day basis, but people that are willing to kind of help you with your journey. You know what I mean? That was also when I first started to start sharing that I had MS. And it goes back to feeling ashamed, right? When you tell people you have something that they can't see, it's very hard for people to understand what something is, especially when I was just learning what it was as well. So they're like, you're young, you could do it. You know, you're young, you got it. Or my favorite is like, at least you don't have cancer, or like, at least, you know, I had someone that was like, at least you don't have Parkinson's, because Parkinson's is really bad. And I'm like, I don't want any of it, you know? Those type of comments is just something. Validation. Comparing is like the thief of everything, and it just sucks to have that added into you're already feeling ashamed about, you know, having this going on or whatever. While this was going on, I was in an abusive relationship, mentally, emotionally, physically, and at that same point, literally 2 months after I was diagnosed, or 3 months, my apartment caught on fire. So I'm just trying to transition into being a normal person, and then all of these bad things are still happening. And that's when I learned that I have to do something with my MS. I have to learn about it. I have to try to learn how to cope with it, because when you have MS, you cannot really put yourself into stressful situations. You don't want to overexert yourself, or you don't want your symptoms to come back, right? So I'm going through an abusive relationship. I'm going through my apartment burning down. Those are 2 mind-blowing situations that you're gonna get stressed, and I did.
And you have 2 little kids.
And I have 2 little kids, which are my joy though. At that time, they didn't even affect anything. Actually, they took me, my kids are great. Like, they took me and didn't see anything that was so wrong with me. You know what I mean? Like, they were acting like I was normal, which I am. But, you know, to them, they were just like, that's my mom, you know? But around that time when I was in those situations, I had that was my first kind of flare up situation where, you know, I just got diagnosed, so I just was weaned off the steroids. I'm thinking and looking what's going to be my choice, right? What kind of medication do I want? What route do I want to go in? These are decisions that have to be made kind of fast. And I wasn't making them, right? And I'm going through all these big things, and I just went into a flare up right away. So now that numbness that was on my right side of my body ended up being all over. So backtracking to when I got diagnosed, the MRI was showing that I had lesions all over. So in my brain and in my neck and in my spine. So that affects different parts of your body. That's how they can tell if your symptoms are aligning with what they see. And at that point, I knew that I had a big lesion on my left side of my brain, which weirdly enough affects your right side of your body. And I had, lesions to explain my vision. There was one big one right on my muscle of my eye, which is how they saw. And one of the biggest ones that I have is on my brainstem, which affects like my talking, my memory, my movement and stuff like that. So at that time, I'm like, this is so weird, right? They saw all of that stuff. Why is my whole entire body numb? That's weird. So then it started going top, like my legs, stomach area, up here area, arms, and then it even got to my face where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So again, I had to step out of work around that time. I tried to go back, then I had to step out again because it got so bad to the point where like I couldn't tell if I had to use the bathroom or not. So I was like, I can't go to work like that. Yeah, so I'm thinking, imagine you're getting diagnosed with this, you get steroids, you're getting back into the swing of things, I go back into work, and then you get hit with a stressful situation, and it could really make your whole entire life change all over again, right? So they're like, okay, we need to get all of this stuff together. Let's do this infusion. And at the time, this was one of the most and newest infusions called Tysabri. But at the time, my insurance wasn't covering it. It kept on denying it. And I'm like, I'm over here having a flare up and they're denying this medication. So we tried a different medication for the insurance sake to make sure that they would approve it. So I finally got approved and I was able to get in right before the holidays. So I spent my Christmas and November and Thanksgiving that year getting infusions for my MS. And I am so thankful for that medication though. It literally took a lot out of my body. It's so the medication that I took at the time and I'm still taking now, it's Ocrevus, and it is a kind of like a chemotherapy infusion, and basically what it does is it attacks your cells, your infection fighting cells, the ones that are currently eating away at itself, so that way it gives my body a rest for those 6 months. So I don't have necessarily a medication that they're injecting into me, but rather a medicine that they're trying to kill the bad stuff that's in me, so to say. So all of that going on, I had my first infusion, and then symptoms finally started to like get manageable at that point. I'm like, okay, we could do this, like one of the main things that got me to that point is my support system that I have.
Did you get rid of all the stress at that time too?
At that time, my relationship ended with that horrible, like,
The toxic one.
The toxic relationship that I had. My apartment burned down. So at that point, I couldn't get that back. But it's something that like everyone's like, oh my gosh, your apartment burned down. Like people are trying to give me donations. And I'm in the background. Again, I'm not telling anybody about my MS. I'm in the background like, I don't care about my apartment. I don't care about the things that I lost, because I'm trying to figure out how to live right now, just in general, So people tend to forget about that around that time. They're like, wow, I can't believe your apartment burned. And I'm just like, it's okay, because I have bigger things to like worry about.
That's crazy when your apartment burning down isn't the biggest thing.
No, literally. And then not only in the midst of that, I got diagnosed in 2019. So that was the start of COVID. So I'm like, this is happening. My house burned down. It was my son's like about to be 3rd birthday. I'm like, oh my gosh, my house just burned down. I can't even provide him a birthday party because the money, nothing matched up, or, so, but at that point I'm like, I'm just so thankful that this medication made me feel better, you know? But yeah, essentially I did eliminate the big stressors that were in my life. And it helps a lot.
It's the biggest thing. That's a trigger. Yeah.
Yes, it's one of the biggest triggers. So when people are telling me like, you know, why are you so like happy, or why are you so like jolly sometimes? And I'm just like, I kind of don't have no choice. Like, I don't want to be in an angry state or, you know, sad all the time. Although we can't control those emotions. I can get irritated, mad, sad. I'm human. But for the most part, that was the start of me wanting to change my mentality for the better.
Yeah.
Just not even for, you know, like to seem happy all the time or just for other people's sake, but for my mental and for my literal physical health. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I started to join like Facebook groups and stuff. Honestly, that was like my first thing, was like starting Facebook groups. And honestly, from the beginning, when I started to tell people, at least, I always shared my journey. Always, because I'm like, I hope that it reaches someone that knows what MS is, so that way they could come. And my initial thought was like, I'm gonna post it, I'm gonna do everything, because I don't know, maybe there's someone with MS out there that doesn't want to say it. They see me and they're like, girl, I could help you out. Like, yes, I have it. It's so great that, you know. So I didn't get those type of messages, but what the messages I did get, let's say like one of the first messages I got was when I joined one of the Facebook groups. I took a picture and I posted it on the Facebook group, and I'm like, hey, like, I'm new to this and I need help. Like, I want to learn about it, blah, blah, blah. And someone from my town reached out to me because she was on that page. She didn't have it, but her mom had it. And she reached out and she was like, no way, like, this is amazing. And she gave me so much information. She gave me her mom's doctor, like her mom's regimen, everything that she could basically about it. She gave it to me. She gave me her contact, and I just always end up with those type of people in my life. Yeah. And I'm just so thankful for that, because without those type of people in my life, whether they know it or not know it, are so helpful to me. When I made a year, my family and just like my friends and everyone, I got flowers delivered to my house. Orange flowers, saying like, orange flowers delivered, saying like, you know, MS warrior and all this stuff. My sister and my mom got like a birthday cake with a number 1 that said like, fuck you, MS. And then $1, because I don't know, like, if you know, but like sometimes we give babies when they're born like $1, like, here's your first dollar. So that was like my first MS dollar. You know, like, we let out orange balloons at the time too, and just a situation where like everyone's around me making me feel special on my MS anniversary, instead of being like, oh my gosh, I've had MS for a year. Like, that's a year that I lost, you know? Instead of looking at it like that, they kind of helped me looking at it like, oh wow, now we're celebrating it every single year. You know, that was the
like
start.
A new you, like a reborn. That's what it feels
like. Yes, it kind of was.
First birthday as this new person.
Yes, I feel like that's how they were treating it. And that's how I started to treat it. You know, like at the time, I'm like, not always looking at it like that. You know, my first time, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's been a year. But I ended up taking that like momentum that my friends and family gave me, and I posted a video on the Facebook pages that I started to follow, and I'm like, hey guys, like, I made a year and I want all of you guys to let go of an orange balloon, like everyone today. Like, I don't know who I thought I was, right?
No, that's the best.
And People did it. Yeah. Random people that I did not know are sending me videos like of them releasing orange balloons, and there's people that were like, I don't have an orange balloon, but I put an orange shirt on for you, like, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like a sense of village is so important in these situations. They don't have to understand. They kind of just are supporting you, right? I can't give them all the answers of why I'm going through the way I am, and I'm still learning. I'm year 4, so I'm still learning, and that's important. So we ended up searching. So it started with the groups, it started with my family, and then we ended up starting to participate in the MS walks. They're great. My family is a big walker in general. We love to do diabetes walks, AIDS walks, cancer walks, anything that's involved in our family. So this was a no-brainer to start doing the walks. And now we go do the walks for the past 2 years now. We have done it. And we make a team name every time. We get matching shirts and just like learn about MS every single time we go, because they have a bunch of vendors and just people that you're like that are so friendly, and they're like, who has MS around here? And then they start talking to you about their situation. And it's so important to involve yourself with people like that, right? People that want to help you, that want to support you, and just people that are actually going through it too. I think that that's like key to just thriving with this, you know? Like, I could be in pain and no one's gonna understand, and that's okay. But it's not okay, but it's okay, you know? But it's important that they're trying to understand, or just trying to be there for you as best as they can. I feel like that's important.
Yeah. That's what's helped me through my autoimmunes, is just like the people I know that have autoimmunes. Like, so I don't specifically know people with my specific autoimmune. We're also trying to figure it out. So right now it's just mixed connective tissue disorder.
Which I feel like, not to cut you off, but I do feel like that is a big part of being diagnosed with anything anyways, is just such that waiting period, right? Of just saying like, of the doctors trying to figure out what's going on. No one talks about that. No one talks about how frustrating that could be, and kind of scary for somebody to be like, what's going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so because you end up dismissing, like when you talk about waking up with pain, like I have pain. Is it me? Like, you go ahead.
Yes, stop. Yes, I agree.
Like,
or is it the MS? And then, or is it this?
Or am I being lazy?
Yes.
Or am I like, wait, what am I supposed to do? How far should I push myself today? Because is it my autoimmune telling me not to, or is it like me just being tired and lazy, and it's just hard when nobody understands, including you.
I love that you just said that, because it's true. I feel like a part of this is not only like that waiting period, but also kind of like accepting, is acceptance that you might have something, or you do have something, and you cannot continue to let yourself feel like, I'm being lazy, like let me just get over it, like I could do it. The old you and the new you are like two different people. You know, I feel like that's where I'm at in my journey, is to continue to be positive, because that has got me this far, to be honest. Being positive and just always trying to see what I can do now, you know? Obviously, like I said, I'm not the same person as before, but that doesn't mean I can't succeed as this person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just want to clarify for people listening. You're not talking about toxic positivity. You're talking about being like
the real positivity, not the toxic, like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, kind of like,
it's not real.
Like, yeah, like toxic is, again, goes back to accepting, right? That's how I feel. Like, toxic positivity would be just like, this is not real and I'm not going through this and
ignore my body.
I'm going to ignore it all over again. Like, hello, that's how I started this. I don't want it to be like a full circle like that. I want to trust my body, and I want to feel what I feel. And I feel like the reason why I got this far is because I am so honest in all aspects of my life. And I'm honest to the doctors. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be like, are you sure you could help me or not? Because that's how I left hospitals. My one doctor was not for me. And that's okay. Like, we have to find, again, be honest with your body, be honest with yourself, and find what works for you. But ignoring it is not. It's not okay. Don't ignore it. Whether you feel like you don't want to have it, okay, cool. I think still a part of the process is accepting that you have it regardless.
And that's where the positivity comes from.
And that
acceptance and like, okay.
Yeah. You're like, okay, let's do it and let's figure it out, because I have no idea what this is. And when we figure it out, we're gonna get to the end. I don't know how we're gonna get to that finish line right there, but we're gonna get there. You know what I mean? That's the positivity I'm talking about, is using my people that are around me to help me gain my positivity too, because it's not like, you do have to find it within, but I don't want to also surround myself with people that really don't believe in me. Like, oh yeah, she has MS and she thinks she could do it all. You know, no, I can. Believe in me, because we could only go so far together. And I have those type of people around me, thankfully, that help me gain my positivity, along with those doctors, nurses, people that I encounter, strangers that I don't know, that choose to tell me things, to give me information, to give me like an outlet, any little thing to help me. Those people all help in my positivity as well. You know what I mean? I don't think I gained the positivity all on my own, at least in my situation.
I do want to give credit to you though, because you're listening. A lot of times we go out the world and people are telling us things, but we're not listening. Like, you actually want to learn, and you're actually listening, and you don't write nobody off. Thank you. You're just like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like I am that way.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. You listen to anybody. Like,
I do.
You do not write.
Cut that out.
You don't. I'm not saying like you don't write anyone off. You're not like, oh, what do you know?
Yeah.
You're like, you don't judge somebody from the like how they look, and you're just like, well, what do they know?
Right. No, I agree, and that's literally is a good segue actually into why this disease is more than just a physical. This is not like something that you could visibly see. Right? So who am I? Someone that literally has a disease that is invisible. They call it an invisible disease. To judge someone off of what they look like, or you know what I mean, or what they're going through or something like that. Honestly, to mostly everyone, no one will ever think that I have MS. You know, I am, young, and I feel like that is a misconception, right? They're like, MS, I thought older people get that. Or is that the disease that you're in a wheelchair or you have a cane? And although, yes, it could lead to that, I'm not there yet in my journey, and I feel like there was no other choice but to be vocal about what I'm going through, because people need to see it. Whether they don't really physically see it, they need to feel it. They need to see it other ways, because that will show people to be kinder to everyone that they meet, My last thing that I feel like really made a difference with lifestyle changes is therapy. And that goes for both physical and mental therapy. I feel like I didn't know I needed mental therapy until I realized it was really hard for me to accept that I had MS too. Then I'm like, okay, I have it and it's okay to talk about it. I can't really relate to anybody else. So let me just see what my therapist says. And, you know, when I brought it up to her, she sees this a lot. People that are battling, accepting a disease and kind of trying to learn ways to cope and navigate through that, right? I feel like it's going from a non-disabled person basically to a disabled. And for me to even accept the word disabled is something I'm still working with my therapist about. And I'm happy I came to this decision to want to always talk about my disability, and I want to always encourage people to talk about their disability and to spread awareness for it, you know what I mean?
What makes the word disability hard for you to accept?
I think it's hard to accept sometimes because of what we were taught. Right. A disability growing up to me is someone that's not able to do something, someone that is not able to, let's say, walk, right? And then the society, they put these, I don't know how to say it, like maybe judgments, or just even like they stop that person before that person stops that person. You know what I mean?
Like the obstacles.
Yeah, I actually went, this is like a testimony that I have. I was in a little focus group at work, and we have a deaf person, and he signed, and like, you know, we all communicate somehow. We don't all know ASL, but we all communicate. And one day we're in a little focus group and something pops up about disability. And this is before I was diagnosed, actually. So everyone's looking at him, right? And we're just all looking at him and like, you got to answer the question because you're the disabled one. And he actually was just like, I was born like this, so I don't find myself as I'm disabled. And I was just like, well, that is a great way to think of it. You know what I mean? So for everyone, I think that everyone has different definitions of disability, right? And for me, the negative connotation that comes with the word disability is what is a struggle, not necessarily the word disability. You know what I mean? It all goes back to the public world judgment, going back to the way people are seeing like, hey, you don't look sick, but you have a disability, you know, like you have a disabled placard, but it goes from that. That's what I'm trying to navigate through, and just going back to accepting and accept that, yes, it's a disability, but not all disabilities look the same on everybody. And not every disability is a negative thing. And I think that that's what needs to kind of be worked on and worked through, and have people just accept that part of disability. You know?
There's even people who argue that there's really no thing as disability, right? Because when you're trying to figure out what disability is, you're comparing it to a world that we created, like steps. Like we man-made steps. The world naturally goes up and down on its own, like a ramp. So it's just like society created this world that is for the typical person, and then we cast everybody else who can't fit in that world as disabled.
When it's not necessarily always like that. And I feel like that was the perfect example when he told me that, like, oh yeah, I was born deaf, so I don't find myself as disabled, because he was the definition of like, my only competition is myself, because he's on the same playing field from when he was born. So he don't find no disability from when he was born to an adult. He probably finds judgment throughout his life, or people, you know, making him feel like he has a disability, but himself, he didn't feel that, right? And I feel like I could only hope to ever get to that point, you know, like, and I'm on the right track. I just feel like that's what we all have to work towards. We're all human. We're all living the same air. You know, we all have to put ourselves in each other's shoes to know that, yeah, I may not walk like you, or I might not talk like you, but I'm walking and talking the same way you're walking and talking. You know what I mean?
We're all surviving.
We're
all just trying to survive. That's it.
Surviving. I'm a survivor. I'm a warrior. Literally, that's what they call it. They don't call MS like survivors. They call them warriors. Because you're not surviving something that could be fatal, right? You're just going through this in some warrior actions. And it ties into yoga, and it's just like great.
I love that.